Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Marvel Comics Presents number 76, 1991, and this is part 5 of Weapon X. So a stunning cover once again by Barry Windsor-Smith here, penciling, inking and colouring this cover. I like the choice of red, which denotes the violence, of course, and the little detail of Hines' shoe slipping off there, and even this little bit of spit emerging from her mouth as Logan has her by the throat and is getting ready to gut her entirely. And just the size differential. Logan, a short guy himself, around 5'4", and Hines has got to be way smaller than that, petite, just really evoking the fact that Logan has been turned into a killer beast. And that is the theme of the story inside, with the professor looking to control Logan, the titular Weapon X. So we've got our credits here on the credits page. So this is chapter 4, there was the prologue, but this is part 5 of my video series on Weapon X. And the little rubric here, Experiment X, picks up the pace as Logan manifests his claws. We saw that in previous installments. Story art Barry Windsor-Smith, that includes the colors. The letterer is Jim Novak, so Jim Novak is doing the actual lettering within the speech balloons and caption boxes, but Barry Windsor-Smith is responsible for the placement of those as well as sound effects as well. So we begin with Logan unconscious, and we have him nonetheless picking up on some of the conversation around him. So we've got little fragments of dialogue by the professor, Dr. Cornelius, and Hines, the secretary and computer expert. So you've got these little fragments here: create a monster, terrible knives, mutant, beast, once a man, but scored to the bone, claws, still human, mindless, restructured, murdering, trained, animal. And then we're into the actual dialogue here. So great top-down angled image of Logan in what looks almost like a sarcophagus, and of course he's laden down with wires and stuck full of needles as they begin the process of trying to program him, train him behaviorally in order to be a weapon. Cornelius is instructing Hines here. I love the little detail of the sound effects here, kadik kadik, as she taps away on the keyboard. And the professor here is impatient. So he's saying, I hope this isn't a waste of my time, Dr. Cornelius. We should have begun reorientation by now. What's the point of this weapon if we can't control him? So that is going to be something that is explored in this 8-page installment. So Cornelius hands him a speaker, which he says to the professor is a direct link to Logan. And the professor says, with this I can speak to him, control him. And Cornelius responds, suggest perhaps, control, I don't know. What you'll see on the big screen will be in direct relation to your spoken word. So the big screen is tapped into Logan's brain, and that's something that is going to emerge a little later in the story in terms of what exactly is going on in his brain and his psyche and his unconscious. So they're getting ready here for the for this experiment in behavioral programming. The professor's impatient. Here he is saying, Logan, you're in my control, Logan. And he says here, you have one master and it is me. You will do anything I say. And Cornelius interrupts. Oh, Professor, yes, what? The professor's impatient. We haven't begun yet, sir. The machine isn't on. So a little kind of moment of levity here, some humor. And the professor then with his shoulders slumped. Then please get on with it, Doctor. So great body language here from Barry Windsor-Smith. So, you know, this is a master at work. It's not just posed figures. The figures are acting out emotion and conveying emotion just by the images and pictures. And something I've commented on in previous installments is how Barry Windsor-Smith doesn't just color Logan or any of the other characters with like peach, flesh, pink colors. Instead, he mixes it up so you get darker blues here and yellows on the face, and this conveys the way that skin actually reflects colors in the real world, and it just makes the art look distinctive, number one, but also more attractive and naturalistic in some ways. So the experiment begins, and Cornelius says to Professor, "Pardon my suggestion, sir, but it might be advisable to avoid any directives to the patient during these tests, the psychotechnics of the situation." And the professor, as I said, he's impatient. So there's some feedback on the control panel here. The keyboard explodes. Skick fatch. I like the sound effects here. And Logan seems to go into some kind of arrest here on the medical table. And these are an amazing couple of pages here. This one in particular, where we're getting on the big screen an image of what is going on in Logan's psyche. So we have a screaming going on here. We have Hines trying to tap away at the keyboard. And then finally we hear something from Logan. Pain, eye, hurting, pain. And you see this is really interesting. You see this kind of blur from a kind of a layer of flesh and muscle over the skull, and then a kind of a shift to the skull beneath the skin and muscle there as well, with the teeth shifting at an angle to this part here. So obviously what's happening is the image is kind of shifting on screen and changing, and then finally just this horrific image of Logan in pain and his cry, "What have you done to me?" This is like something, you know, like I was thinking about this. It's like it's like a Kafka short story where you're dealing with something absolutely terrible done to an individual, and the individual has no understanding of what has happened. So there's something like a blend of kind of Dr. Frankenstein type horror, but blended with a Kafka-esque theme as well in respect to Logan's horror, what's happened to him, and this psychic representation of how he feels. So Cornelius asks Hines, can she control this in any way? And she says, no, she can't do a thing. This is a great vertical panel here with Logan's arm extending, and we know what perhaps is about to happen. The claws emerge. He gets up off the gurney and he grabs Hines by the throat, and he declares, "You, pain, to me." And she denies it and begs him to not do anything to her. And the professor says, "Leave that girl, you animal. This is your master. You're a beast in my control." And we'll see indeed whether that is the case or not. And it proves not to be the case. So Logan throws Hines, who faints, into Cornelius's arms. And this is an amazing detail here. If we look at the big screen, you see this tortured looking skull with the eyeballs moving and the spikes and thorns emerging from them, just turning the eyes towards the professor. The professor here is realizing he's in trouble, so he orders Logan to stay back, but Logan isn't going to do that. So Cornelius calls for the guards to come in and tranquilize Logan. So they're worried about hitting the professor, but they do manage to tranquilize Logan. He falls back onto the gurney or medical table, and everybody's in shock. So you get the reactions here. The screen in the background has gone blank. We've got all these sound effects here in the background. Really nicely done, the details there. And the professor just panics and says, "Kill him. We must kill Logan now. He's a wild animal. We cannot control him." And he's prepared to do it himself. Great top-down shot here, and the light bulb reflecting on the professor's skull as well, and down on top of Cornelius, and the helmet of the guard. And here Hines is just recovering from her shock, and she sees, like, Puck, this tip of one of Logan's claws emerging from his wrist. As they argue in the background, Cornelius telling the professor to back down. And then this great moment-to-moment shot of one claw emerging initially from Logan's wrist, and the blood pouring down his hand. Spuck, cuck, skuck, schlick, kick. So there's no housings for the claws just yet. And just the horror. And I love the detail of the silhouette here as they move back into shadow and then forward. And then they look at the screen. And what they see on the screen is a representation, of course, of Logan's psyche and what he wants. And he wants to, look at that, look at the violence of that image, basically slash the professor in the head. We see the holes of the 3 claws there across his glasses. So that is really striking imagery and masterful comics storytelling by a master of the medium, Barry Windsor-Smith. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Weapon X Part 5. There'll be more parts to come over the coming weeks and months. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video in YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.